Eastern Woodlands. The campfire crackles and glows before you. An old man rises to tell a legend. Long ago, he begins, your people often went to war. The battles were bloody and cost many lives. But then a man named Dagawawida had a vision. He told the warring groups to stop their endless battling. They should agree to deal fairly with each other and establish a lasting peace. The old man continues the legend by telling of Hiawatha, who convinced 5 warring groups to join together in a great peace. People of the 5 groups buried their weapons. Over these weapons, Dangawadi planted the magnificent white pine called the Tree of Peace. The legends of Dagawaida and Hiawatha are part of the early history told by the Iroquois people. The 5 groups were tribes of American Indians. A tribe, a group of families bound together under a single leadership, is a term often used to describe people who share a common culture. The 5 tribes were the Seneca, the Cayuga, the Onondaga, the Oneida, and the Mohawk. Scholars think that in about 1580, these tribes came together to create the Iroquois League. A league is an organization that people form which unites them for a particular purpose. Later, a 6th tribe, the Tuscarora, joined the Iroquois League. The 5 tribes sent 50 representatives, all men, to a great council. This council made decisions for the league as a whole. The older women of the tribe chose and could remove these representatives. The Iroquois Trail linked the lands of the league. Find it on the map below. Today, the New York Thruway follows part of the route of the Iroquois Trail. The Iroquois lived in the Eastern Woodlands cultural region of North America. It is just one of the several regions that you will study in this chapter. Native American tribes within each of these regions developed similar cultures using the resources of their environments. Each different one is a cultural region, an area in which people live with similar cultures. Living in the woodlands. The Eastern Woodlands region provided rich resources for the Iroquois and other woodland people. Thick forests offered nearly endless supplies of wood. People hunted animals that were plentiful in the area, such as deer, bear, elk, and beaver for food. They used the skins and furs of these animals for clothing. Thousands of lakes and rivers and streams provided water and fish. Native Americans grew such crops as corn, beans, and squash in the fertile soil. Look at the diagram on this page. It shows a longhouse, an Iroquois building used for shelter. Young people provided poles for the frame, and slabs of elm bark served as walls. You may be wondering why it is called a longhouse. It could be as long as 150 feet, half of a football field. Each longhouse was divided into living areas for as many as 12 different families. Rows of shared cooking fires were placed in the center aisle of the longhouse. An Iroquois village or town could have as many as 150 longhouses. The Iroquois called themselves the Haudenosaunee, which means people of the longhouse. The name Iroquois originally came from other tribes, speakers of the Algonquin language. Algonquin speakers included the Wampanoag, Powhatan, and Pequot. The Iroquois also used trees to make their swift birch bark canoes. They bent birch saplings to make the frame. Then they stretched wide strips of bark over the frame. First, they used sharp, pointed tools called bone awls to punch holes in the bark. Then they used bone needles to sew the pieces together. Finally, they covered the seams with tree gum to make the canoes watertight. The Iroquois used the woodlands for both food and clothing. For example, the men hunted for deer, and they used animal hides for clothing and the meat for food. Women tanned the hides and sewed them into shirts and leggings. They also cleared parts of the woodlands of trees to make fields for crops. In the spring, they attached birch bark containers to the maple trees and gathered sap for maple syrup. Like other Native Americans, the Iroquois felt a deep connection to the animals, the trees, and other resources around them. When an Iroquois hunter killed a deer, he knelt beside it and spoke to it. He thanked it for the food and clothing it would provide for his family. Only then did the hunter take out his skinny knife. At harvest time, the Iroquois gave thanks for their crops. Great Spirit in heaven, we salute you with our thanks that you have preserved so many of us for another year to participate in the ceremonies of this occasion. The photograph on this shows a wampum, polished seashells that were hung on strings and woven into belts. Wampum was highly valued by the Iroquois. A wampum belt might serve as a gift of honor of marriage. It might be given to comfort someone after the death of a loved one. Some belts were created to symbolize an important event. Wampum could be even used as an invitation to peaceful talks.